Relics left behind by ancient humans are typically broken, buried, and difficult to identify, but some can completely change our perspective on our place in history. Here are some strange discoveries. Number 1. Sandbyborg Massacre. When archaeologists excavating a 5th century Swedish site discovered a human skeleton on the floor of a house, they wondered why it hadn't been buried. Then they discovered another, and yet another. They had all been executed with swords, axes, and clubs and then abandoned until their houses collapsed on them. So far, they've discovered the remains of 26 people, as well as a half-eaten fish indicating that the attack was a surprise, coins, and jewelry, but no indication of who the attackers were or what they were angry about. Number 2. 78,000 years of human occupation. Pangayaseti, a network of caves in Kenya, houses human artifacts dating from the Middle Stone Age to the present day. The cave could have housed hundreds of people, with more than 1,000 square feet of space in its main chamber, and its tropical forest location has enjoyed a relatively stable climate while other parts of Africa have experienced droughts. A team discovered large stone tools dating back to the earliest inhabitants. More specialized arrowheads and blades began to appear around 67,000 years ago. Number 3. Injured zoo animals in ancient Egypt. 5,000 years ago, hundreds of years before the pyramids were built, Hierakonpolis was one of the most important towns along the Nile River, and its wealthy residents demonstrated their status by keeping exotic pets. Among the animals discovered during a cemetery excavation were 2 elephants, several baboons, and a hippo. But it wasn't all kibble and petting. The skeletons of several of the baboons and the hippo revealed signs of healed bone fractures. Researchers believe they were injured during capture or while being tied in place. However, the bones could only heal while the animals were protected, which is how we know they were kept in captivity. Number 4. Kids with disabilities buried like royalty. 34,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers buried several people, including 2 adolescent boys, at Sungir, a couple of hours east of present-day Moscow. When the graves were excavated, researchers discovered that the boys were buried together with 10,000 mammoth ivory beads, more than 20 armbands, around 300 pierced fox teeth, 16 ivory mammoth spears, carvings, antlers, and human fibulae laid across the chest of each child. Among the adults, however, some graves had no treasures, while others had only a few. Number 5. Advanced Stone Age tools in India. According to genetic evidence, more than 90% of modern humans are descended from a small population of Homo sapiens that left Africa around 60,000 years ago. Researchers believe that the group's success was due to the development of superior stone tools, fine stone blades that could be used on the ends of spears rather than bulky hand axes. However, a site in southern India, where ancient human sites have not been extensively studied, demonstrates that people had advanced tools more than 200,000 years ago. It is unknown whether this means that human ancestors left Africa in waves or that different hominids developed similar innovations independently. Number 6. Hidden treasures. Like his father before him, Utah rancher Waldo Wilcox and his entire family kept quiet about the ancient pit houses, prehistoric rock lines, paintings, and stone tools scattered throughout their 4,000-acre Range Creek property. The artifacts were left by a mysterious tribe known as the Fremont Indians who lived in the area 1,000 years ago, and they remained mostly undisturbed due to the Wilcox's gates and road-closed signs, which were erected to deter hunters. When Waldo decided he was too old to manage the ranch, he sold it to the Bureau of Land Management, which now manages it under the auspices of the Utah Museum of Natural History. Number 7. Terracotta Warriors. When workers digging a well in China discovered a life-size statue of a soldier in 1974, they knew it was unusual, but they had no idea what else lay beneath the surface. Archaeologists began excavating and now believe there are up to 8,000 clay statues. The majority are warriors, each with their facial expressions and weapons, and there are also full-size terracotta horses and chariots. The project was designed as a mausoleum for China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huangdi, who ascended to the throne in 246 BC. Qin is buried in a tomb at the site that has yet to be excavated due to concerns about its stability, but explorations around the perimeter have revealed statues of dancers and acrobats. Number 8. Tiny human or alien. A 6-inch tall skeleton with a pointed head was discovered naturally mummified in Chile's Atacama Desert in 2003. Despite a widespread belief that the skeleton, which had bone density comparable to that of a 6-year-old despite its small size, was an alien, scientists have since been able to sequence and study its DNA. Ada, the female mummy, was discovered to be human. She was most closely related to indigenous Chileans but also had some European ancestry. Researchers discovered 7 different mutations in her growth genes, but they are unsure which caused her skeletal malformation. Number 9. Antikythera Mechanism. A Greek ship sank about 2,000 years ago off the coast of Antikythera and sat on the sea floor until it was discovered in 1900. While sorting through the artifacts recovered from the wreck, archaeologists came across an object that puzzled them. It had multiple layers of brass gears precisely fitting together and built into a wooden box. A science historian discovered a half-century later that it could predict the positions of planets and stars in the sky based on date. Since then, researchers have discovered Greek text on the artifact that demonstrates it can also predict eclipses, moon phases, and sporting events such as the Olympics. Number 10. Pet Cemetery. A team of Peruvian anthropologists excavating a 1,000-year-old cemetery south of Lima discovered more than just humans. The people of the Caribbea culture, which predated the Inca Empire, buried 43 dogs there. The cherished pets, which were used to herd llamas, were buried in separate plots near their human owners, and many were buried with treats and blankets. Gillen was able to see how similar the dogs looked to a popular modern breed called the Caribbea Shepherd because the desert climate preserved their bodies, and her team is now attempting to prove a genetic lineage. Number 11. Medieval Maternity. A woman in the Italian town of Imola died about 1,300 years ago, just a few weeks before she was due to give birth. Archaeologists discovered the skeleton of her fetus between her legs, making her a rare example of a coffin birth, in which gases build up inside a pregnant woman's body and push the fetus through the birth canal. However, scientists are more intrigued by another unusual discovery. A small hole had been created in the mother's skull before she died. Drilling such a hole is known as trepanation, and it has been used throughout history and around the world to treat head injuries and headaches and possibly to ward off evil spirits.